The scary part about the Seattle Seahawks is not that they won the Super Bowl, it is what started happening right after it. While most teams are still trying to figure out how to catch Seattle, the Seahawks quietly added a player who could fix the one thing that almost held this offense back last season. And inside Seattle, people are already starting to talk about Jadarian Price like he is walking into something much bigger than a normal rookie role. Because this is not a rebuilding team giving touches to a young player just to see what happens. This is a championship roster with a real opening in the backfield after Kenneth Walker III left. Last season, the offense had moments where it looked unstoppable, then suddenly went cold. The run game disappeared too often, drives stalled out, defenses started sitting on the pass. Seattle survived it because the defense was elite, and Sam Darnold delivered in big moments, but the weakness was still there. That is why this rookie changes the conversation. If Jadarian Price gives Seattle a steady run game, everything around him gets easier and more dangerous at the same time. Darnold gets cleaner looks, Jaxon Njigba gets more space. Defenses stop attacking and start guessing, and once a Super Bowl team starts fixing its biggest weakness, the rest of the league has a serious problem on its hands. The part people should watch closely is not the ring, it is the attitude after the ring. Mike Macdonald is not letting the Seattle Seahawks walk around like last season gives them anything for free. That is how teams fall off. They start believing the trophy protects them. Seattle is doing the opposite. The message sounds simple: earn it again or lose it fast. That matters because this roster has every reason to get comfortable. They beat the best teams, handled the biggest stage, and opened 2026 with the whole league staring at them. But Macdonald has been careful with the way he talks. He is not selling a victory lap. He is not leaning on defending champion noise. He is trying to keep the locker room locked into the same work that got them there in the first place. That is what makes Seattle dangerous before the games even begin. Talent wins plays, but focus wins months. If the Seahawks keep that edge, then the new pieces are not joining a soft champion. They are joining a team still chasing something. And that is where the pressure shifts to the rest of the NFC because Seattle is not acting like the story is finished. The strange thing about Sam Darnold is that he already gave Seattle the answer everyone wanted, but he still left one question behind. He stood tall when the season got tight. He made the throws that mattered. He helped the Seahawks finish the job. But the clean truth is this: his season was not as safe as the final result made it look. The problem was never about talent, it was about the extra chances he gave away. Too many interceptions, too many loose balls, too many drives where Seattle had the game moving, then suddenly handed control back to the other side. A great defense can cover that for a while. A strong team can survive it for one season. But repeating as champions with that same habit is a dangerous bet. That is why Darnold is one of the biggest stories in Seattle right now. He does not need to become a different quarterback. He needs to become a cleaner one. Fewer mistakes, smarter throws, better ball security. If that happens, the Seahawks offense stops fighting itself and the rest of the league gets a much harder version of the team that already won it all. The next step for the Seattle Seahawks is not about adding more noise, it is about making the offense less easy to read. Last season, there were games where defenses started to feel the rhythm. They knew when Seattle wanted to lean on the pass. They knew when the run game was not hurting them enough. That is when drives slowed down and the pressure moved back onto Sam Darnold. This is where the run game becomes more than a side story. If Seattle can run the ball with real force, the whole field opens up. Linebackers have to step forward, safeties have to think twice. The pass rush cannot just attack every snap. That gives Darnold more time, cleaner throws, and better matchups outside. It also gives Jaxon Njigba more space to work instead of carrying so much attention. That is the hidden switch in this offense. It does not need to become fancy, it needs to become balanced. When a defense has to respect the run, the passing game gets sharper without forcing it. And if Seattle finds that balance early, the same team that already reached the top suddenly becomes much harder to prepare for. The Seattle Seahawks already had a defense that made teams uncomfortable. Now the real question is what happens when Nick Emmanwori takes another step. He is not the kind of defensive back you place in one spot and forget about. He is too big, too fast, and too useful for that. In Mike Macdonald's defense, that kind of player becomes a problem before the ball is even snapped. That is where his value gets dangerous. Emmanwori can move around the field and change the look of the defense without Seattle changing players. One snap he can sit deep, another snap he can walk down near the line, then he can slide inside, cover space, or bring pressure. For a quarterback, that creates doubt. And doubt is exactly what macdonald wants. If emmanwori becomes cleaner in coverage, Seattle's defense gets a new ceiling. The front can attack with more freedom, the secondary can hide more looks, the whole defense becomes harder to read. That's not a small year two jump. That is the kind of jump that can turn a great defense into the unit nobody wants to see in January. The first game already feels personal. Seattle opens against the New England Patriots, the same team it beat on the biggest stage. That alone gives this matchup weight. New season, same reminder. The banner goes up, the crowd gets loud, and the team across the field has to stand there watching the moment Seattle took from them. But this game is not only about last year, it is about what New England does with that loss. The Patriots will come in trying to prove the Super Bowl was not the real gap between these teams. They change pieces, they will have months to think about what went wrong, and they know another bad loss would be ugly. For Seattle, that makes the opener more than a celebration. It becomes the first chance to shut down the revenge story before it grows. That is why Week 1 matters so much. If the Seahawks come out sharp and handle New England again, the message hits the whole league early. Last season was not a one-night run, it was not luck, it was not a soft road. Seattle is still here, still loaded, and still making teams prove they can deal with them. The Seahawks are not getting a soft road back. The schedule is stacked with games that can turn one rough week into a real problem. Chargers, 49ers, Broncos, Chiefs, Cowboys, Eagles, and Rams are all sitting there waiting. That is the price of being on top. Everybody gets up for you, and every big game feels like someone else's chance to make a statement. The toughest part is how these games come in waves. Seattle has to deal with physical defenses, strong quarterbacks, short rest, long travel, and division battles that never stay clean. A champion can win one hard game. The real test is doing it again, then doing it again the next week when the body is tired and every opponent has studied your best tape. That is what makes this season so dangerous. The Seahawks have the roster to handle it, but the schedule will not let them fake anything. If the offense is still uneven, it will show. If the depth is not ready, it will show. If the hunger drops, it will show fast. And by the time Seattle reaches the late season battles, everyone will know whether this team is built for another run or just living off last year. The final thing that separates Seattle is not only the names on the roster, it is the way this team is being built from the inside. Mike Macdonald has young players fighting for roles, veterans trying to keep control, and a locker room that does not sound ready to live off old praise. That matters more than people think because the hardest part after winning is staying honest. This is where the next wave becomes important. Bud Clark can push the safety room. Ty Okada has already shown he belongs. Julian Love gives the back end a steady voice. Rashad Rochelle and Trayvon Rudolph bring new speed and return value into a roster where every small job matters. These are not headline names yet, but championship teams stay alive because the bottom of the roster keeps pushing the top. That is why Seattle's repeat chance feels real. The stars give them power, but the competition gives them life. Nobody gets to coast. Nobody gets handed last year's success. The Seahawks are not trying to protect a memory. They are trying to build the next one, and that is the kind of mindset that keeps a champion dangerous long after the parade ends. Blessings to all my subscribers, family. Your support means everything. Stay tuned, stay sharp, and I too catch you in the next one.